One way that we could describe it is a brain orgasm. It's a mega blast of energy, sensation, and information. And that is what breathwork can do. So you give yourself a tool like that with the right supervision, guidance, and support, and you can access emotions that you've buried for a lifetime. You can access intuition that is profoundly helpful.
Hi, my name is Aggie, and this is Biohacking Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Another episode of Biohacking Bestie, and today my guest is Helle Weston, my dear friend, who's a total badass, a breathwork teacher, as well as one of the co-founders of Owaken Breathwork. Welcome, Helle.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be here, for you to be here. And you are also, one thing I didn't mention is that you're one of the teachers of my, and one of my challenges, Fit as Fuck, and you have taught my students how to release trauma through breath. So thank you for that. People loved you.
I love being a part of it. Anything that we can do co-creating together, I enjoy. I'm excited to be here. I feel like we telepathically synced up, got the ping on.
We did. We did get the memo.
Already.
Oh, so good. So oh my God, so many things I want to talk to you about. But number one is, how do you navigate in a world that probably has some preconceived idea of who you are? Because I think just looking at you, right? Like, I was just realizing you're wearing pink. You're like having tattoos, you're a badass, you're also super conscious. And I'm sure as people like even watching this, they have this idea of who you might be or you might not be. And how do you navigate in a world that is so quick to judge you for who you are or for just because the way you look?
Ooh, I love that. Well, I think the beauty of the times that we're in right now is that social media is exposing us to so many different types of people. And I remember when I first got into my career, I did feel very isolated and like a complete weirdo. I couldn't see anybody that was like me. I would go to workshops, seminars, different trainings, and most people would be like 20 or 30 years older than me. And that was just one part of it, right? Like the age thing, the stage of life. But then there's things like how you dress, your style, your self-expression, your taste in music, your history, whatever. And personally, I believe that right now, there are people from so many different diverse walks of life who are needed to be in service. And that's how I perceive my role in the collective awakening, if we want to call it that. And I know my partner as well, he's also very tattooed. And it's one of the first things people often say, like, wow, I did not expect you to be this softly spoken, gentle, kind soul.
Yeah. I think both of you really come across, like, if I just saw a photo of you, I'll be like, oh, yo, like they're probably just into some sort of like hardcore things. And you're one of the kindest, sweetest people that make each other like cacao in the morning and hold hands and like sprinkle like rose petals. And I'm like, I can't think of anything sweeter than the two of you. So I think it's just like, do you feel like you need to prove to people that you're not who they think you are? Do you think that you just don't give a shit? Like,
yeah, it's all mindset. And I have gone through stages of feeling self-conscious and like I didn't belong and like I was the odd one out and all of that stuff, which is painful and scary. And typically it just makes you shrink, right? That definitely is what happened for me. I was like, I can't do this. And I lost that belief in myself when I was identified with being a chameleon. So what I found is that being unique is actually a superpower. It is an opportunity for you to connect with people who resonate with you. And instead of just preaching to the choir, like for me personally, I found that with spirituality, there are so many people who dress the same and talk the same and go to the same cafes and listen to the same type of music. And I feel like we could reach so many more people if there were more diverse representatives
Ooh, beautiful.
of the message. And so Lucas and I, that's my partner Lucas, that's how we operate. We're here to reach people who, if we weren't spiritual or conscious or into wellness or whatever you want to call it, we would be hanging out with creatives, musicians, and artists. And so we now use that aspect of ourselves to resonate with those people and help them with something that they might not otherwise be exposed to. So we're all multifaceted, and I think I hope at least that I can be a permission slip for others to get out of this mindset that in order to be into one thing, you have to be all in on that identity. And I think before we started this podcast, you and I were speaking about how you're so glamorous, and I just love that about you. And I was just
You called me out on it a couple of weeks ago during dinner. You're like, oh, I love when I feel so torn because I'm like, right now, like this podcast, I want to be treated seriously. So should I dress like in a way that's more, I don't know, low key? But there's a part of me that wants to feel fabulous right now.
Right. Just break out of the mold and see who you attract.
Yeah.
And again, I was saying to you that with biohacking, you know, we could make the assumption like, okay, who do I think Aggie would be if I didn't know her and I knew she had a biohacking podcast? And I would probably assume that you're going to be wearing a little gym outfit and have your drinks and your orange glasses on. And, you know,
they're on in the evening, but
yeah, identity, right? And yeah, you can do the things just like I can go fully into my
white dress from Caravana.
Exactly, into that zone. Like she's in there. But I'm not going to be that version of me 24/7 because I'm more than that, and so are you.
Yeah, but the box is so small, and I think it's like one of the things that about Biohacking Bestie that like I was like, whoa, people gonna think like, first of all, there aren't enough women in the biohacking space, but biohacking is so much broader than just like, oh, you know, wear yellow glasses and wear your aura ring. Biohacking is breath work, how like mindset, like. None of the biohacking shit works if you feel terrible about yourself because it's all psychosomatic and it's all a placebo technically because it's like we manifest so many things and unprocessed emotions. So it is all connected, but it's also like biohacking, what I always say to women is giving yourself permission to take full responsibility of your life and just stop looking and trying to fit a box that it's not exactly you. And so first of all, thank you for being such a good friend and always like celebrating me for who I am and not just saying, Aggie, if you were spiritual, I don't think you would be wearing your fancy shoes or whatever it might be. You're just like, I fucking love it that you do you. And it's so nice to have a friend like this. Yeah. And the box is so small. So like if you don't fit into a box, and I love that you don't, every time I see you, I'm like, she just fucking does her. Like I feel super inspired. I love that you're feminine, you're a badass, you're a badass entrepreneur. Like your company is blowing up. Like I'm so proud of it. Like you guys have so many students joining your Awaken Breathwork practices and advanced training for facilitators.
Yeah. We've been training facilitators. We have our app. There's a lot of things going on. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I hope that people can also feel the sincerity of the love between us. We're just like fanning on each other all the time in the best way. And it's just beautiful to be able to see each other rise. And to your point about biohacking, I agree. One thing that I love about you that I witness that is like a testament to everything that you do to fill up your cup, to have maximum life force energy pumping through you on a daily basis is just how fully you live. And I think sometimes with just following this topic of allowing inner work or biohacking or wellness or whatever it is to become an identity, I think sometimes we forget why we're doing it in the first place. Yeah, it's not just about doing this inner work for life for the sake of it. It's so that we can live a richer, more healthy, happy, vibrant, like X factor kind of life.
The biohacking has become the way, and the life is sort of like, no, you just do it so you have more energy to do shit you want to do. Like you don't do biohacking as like the end goal. You can obviously, but the goal is to like to experience life, to taste it, to travel, to say fuck it to all the biohacking rules and eat all the pizza and really enjoy it, you know, instead of just like being so rigid in it, because it's like it's just very masculine. I think biohacking is very masculine. It's like, you know, 2 + 2 = 4. So like if I have 3.5 hours of my REM sleep, then I should definitely ramp up my, you know, my workouts today or whatever it might be, instead of just like the feminine energy of like, okay, this is very helpful. Thank you, my Aura Ring. I'm actually just going to disregard all of this and do whatever the hell I want because it feels like my life force energy can override all of it because I feel so aligned with what I do, like I do right now, that I have the energy for it. Anyways, when we first met, it was through a mutual friend, Ryan Louie, mutual friends, and you offered to get me high without drugs.
This is true.
And I was like, all right, well, that's a cheap man's version of getting high. Let's do it. And so it was an hour and a half of breathwork session. And you said things like, okay, be careful. A lot of trauma might come up. You might have like hands, like just like you might not feel your hands. And I was like, girl, I've been breathing for 32 years. I'll be good. And then within 30 or 40 minutes of intense breathing, a lot of things came up. I could not move my hands. I got T-Rex hands and I just basically looked like this on the floor. And I felt like it was definitely very similar to like my ayahuasca journey where I had a lot of like trauma come up. And you were such a loving angel that showed up, like, hey, how are you doing so well? I'm like, oh, I'm doing so well. So you just like had me in tears. It's beautiful, like you have incredible talent to holding space in a moment like this, both of you, even though like you might be looking spirit, but you're like the sweetest people to do it. So how to get high without all the drugs?
Yeah. So what Aggie is speaking about is Awaken Breathwork, and we guide people through these journeys. And typically it is about an hour to an hour and a half plus the instruction and then the integration time. So usually it's a few hours that we're spending with our clients. And essentially we're modifying the breathing pattern to induce a non-ordinary state of consciousness.
Okay, so what is that?
Okay, so to keep it really simple, one way I like to think of it is in your daily life when you are sober, you've had a good sleep, you're going about your life, you are in what we would call your kind of baseline, ordinary state of consciousness. That's how you perceive reality in your day-to-day life.
Like someone watching this podcast right now, that's the
They're
state
in an ordinary state of consciousness, most likely. And then when we say drink a coffee, we know that feeling of suddenly starting to feel a little different. And it might creep up on us gradually. It might come on really strong, really quickly, but we can acknowledge that even though we're still here and it's still us, we feel different. The same could be with alcohol, right? You suddenly start to feel, oh, I'm buzzing. Things a little different. I'm buzzing. Exactly. There's a little high or a buzz coming on. And so we can do the same in its own unique way with breathing. And in our daily lives,
without extra oxygen and any other tools.
Right. So in our daily lives, we're breathing typically in and out through the nose. And that is what I would recommend to everyone. If you're into biohacking, if you're researching breath at all, you will see that breathing in and out of your nose is important.
And that most people actually don't breathe through their nose, as you notice.
A lot of people breathe in and out of the mouth unconsciously throughout the day and also during sleep. And this is an important thing to address if you notice it within yourself or your partner, for example.
I know that. So just to because it would be worth to stop for a second before we go any further. What would be the sign? Like, what are the disadvantages of not breathing through your nose, right? So what would be?
I mean, as a baseline starting point, it reduces your immune system health. It can make you tired. It's not good for your facial structure. There's so many ways that it's not good for you. It's also going to spike your stress levels more chronically. Yeah. So a lot of people who mouth breathe unconsciously in their daily lives, they will experience more stress and anxiety and not know that it's connected to their breathing. And if that's shallow breath, it keeps us in a sympathetic nervous system state.
And so when I read this book, Breath, I immediately I'm sure that people after watching this conversation gotta notice, wait, am I breathing through my nose or through my mouth? And you realize how often you keep your mouth open, especially at the gym or especially when you get excited or whatever. And then I remember with Jacob, I started closing his mouth. I'm like, I see your mouth open. I see everyone's mouth open. So pay attention now. After this interview, you'll see how many people leave their mouth open and actually breathe through their mouth, which is really interesting.
It really is. I mean, that is a whole conversation in and of itself, and something I would just recommend for anybody if they notice it is try wearing mouth tape. You can, if you want to just test it out, you can get a roll of medical tape. You probably have one in your first aid kit, and just put, a cross over your mouth, or a strip if you want. Try it while you sleep and just see how it feels. It shouldn't bother you too much. And actually, it should improve your sleep quality.
It does for me, which was a sign from like, maybe I do sleep with my mouth open, especially if we sleep on a side like a little bit.
It can help with snoring as well. Like, there's a lot of different benefits.
Anyways,
and then in your daily life, when you're working out, just practice closing your mouth, while you're working out. I know that for a lot of us, for example, I was on the treadmill this morning and I still notice that I can go into that.
Yeah, same.
Where I start kind of gasping for air and breathing through my mouth. And so when you train yourself to just close it down and breathe through your nose, it will improve your respiratory health overall. So just want to put that there. I recommend that as a practice.
But then when you do Awaken Breathwork, you actually breathe in and out through your mouth.
We do. So we do, and it depends. In our daily practices, we typically recommend that people breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And we describe this form of breathing as activation breathwork. Activation breathwork is where we're starting to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. And so we can do it through nasal breathing with more effort. So if you're breathing right in your daily life, you're breathing fairly softly, you probably don't even hear it. But when we go into a short practice, for example, we have one called Awaken Daily, which is 5 minutes. And during that practice, if we're doing nasal breathing, we'll be going.
Wow, so the way you breathe is very impressive, actually, because I realized that I used to, when someone said take a deep breath, I would do, and then I realized it's actually never through my stomach. So now I make sure that I expand my diaphragm.
Yeah. And we want the breath to be even expanding out to the sides, like more horizontally than up. Or
I was like,
yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, actually, that's not how you're supposed to breathe. So you taught me so many beautiful things about breath, actually.
Oh, good. Little nuggets can go a long way, right? So we can do the activation breathing to start to stimulate that sympathetic response with the nose. And why would we do that? Some people will be like, why would I want to be in a sympathetic state when I should be in parasympathetic all the time? Like, isn't that the goal? And no, I mean, you talk about this a lot in your challenges, which I love. Understanding that small doses of controlled stress are healthy for us. And so we can work with the breath by modifying the intensity to activate energy. And this can be good for pre-workout. It can be good for before a meeting where you want to be sharp, you want to be on, you want that like laser vision and sharp thinking. Do the activation breath work. And then in the journeys as well, we take it a step further and we go into breathing in and out of the mouth. And that is going to temporarily also induce a sympathetic response. But what I would kind of describe or encourage people to visualize here is that we need to climb a mountain and we need to hike and put in a lot of energy to get to a peak state, which is this non-ordinary state of consciousness that I'm describing. And in that peak state, with the right guidance, this is where set and setting comes in. You need to be supervised by someone who actually understands what they're doing, not just like doing this for fun. When we get to that peak state, then emotions and sensations can start to arise out of the subconscious, out of the body that we're not aware of in our daily waking state. And we can transform and discharge energy that's no longer serving us.
Wow.
So going through that sympathetic peak then allows us to address what hasn't been addressed. And then we come down the other side and we guide our clients back into a parasympathetic state where the integration takes place. So for a lot of people, they've gone through, I mean, I know you have, and I know I have as well. We've gone through things in our lives where we haven't felt safe. And not only have we not felt safe environmentally to process our emotions and to speak our truth, but we haven't felt safe to actually go into the feeling, acknowledge it, process it, and let it go. And so instead, we hold on to these things and they develop over years into tension, into like coping strategies, ways of filtering ourselves and kind of modifying our behavior that aren't authentic.
And also so many I believe like, gut feeling is really correlated to safety. And what I believe in, and like, for example, SIBO, is very much, which is like you have like a prolonged constipation with intestinal methane overgrowth, and where you can't go to the bathroom. And I remember when I like sitting in an eye ceremony and I'm going through that, and she's like, well, you feel so scared that you hold on to your own shit. I'm like, no, I get it. And she's like, it's literally, and also like,
I love that you're saying this right now.
because it's a feeling of safety. Constipation to me, it's like, I don't feel safe to let go. And as crazy as it sounds, I really, really believe that something as simple as going to the bathroom is so correlated to a feeling of safety. And if we do feel safe, you are able to let go, right? So you create this like rigid body, and the more you relax, and I love that you said that in my course, that she said that the moment you started breathing, you stopped having gut issues, bloating and whatever, because you released all that tension from your body that you thought was related to biology, where in fact it was related to unprocessed emotions.
It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, We can develop these things and then go, oh no, it's because of the bacteria overgrowth. But where did that begin?
Yeah, why do you create an environment? Yeah.
To that. Yeah, I love that you brought that up. And also it reminds me of, anyone who experiences constipation, feeling blocked up. I know I experience that a lot. And it's just as you said, it's when I don't feel safe, when I feel on edge, when I feel
traveling, new environment. Yeah.
Yes, traveling. Oh my gosh. When I went to India and like Southeast Asia, I felt the most on edge and uncomfortable, and it showed in my digestion. And breath work can help enormously with that. I love that we're speaking about this.
Good. You said no topic, nothing off topic. Here we are.
I'll talk about poop. Okay. But one of the most beautiful things about breathing and connecting to your breath is your breath massages your organs.
Wow.
It's all connected. And so by understanding that when you aren't relaxed, you typically will find that you'll breathe more shallow, which is going to be up here in the upper part of the lungs and the chest. It's not allowing that movement to happen down through the diaphragm, which is like a balloon.
But also we constantly suck in our bellies as girls because we feel like we want to be skinny. So we're constantly just walking like this. I find myself whenever I do breath work that I realize, I'm like, oh, I actually was sucking in my belly because it's such a habit for me right now that I barely ever just sit like this, just like.
I saw this in a fitness forum last week. A woman was suggesting like never breathe into your belly, and you want to always have your abdominal muscles engaged if you want to remain tight in your core. And you're like, as a breathwork teacher, like really bad advice. I mean, sure, work on your core strength, absolutely, and engage those abs, baby, whenever it serves you. But when you do your breathwork practice, please allow your belly to relax and go soft, and know that it is okay. Like, you're a normal human if your belly expands every time you inhale.
It's also connected to how you sing. So I started singing classes, and and my singing teacher's like, oh, you need to breathe through your belly because that's where the sound is. And it's like there's different sound that comes from here, different that comes from here, and different that comes from here. And so it's part of your self-expression to be able to let the air into your belly, right? So so many things as women that we don't realize it's perpetuated by the culture that we live in, because we have to have our stomach like, sucked in and whatnot. And I love that you said that, like, about massage, that breath is like a massage. So like, instead of going to like, massage, whatever the massage places are, just realizing that, wow, if my belly isn't doing well, maybe lymphatic drainage is great for you, or maybe you just need to breathe. Because I notice that a lot of times my stomach just feels tense, especially when I'm stressed.
Yeah. So that leads me into speaking about restorative breathing. And this is a good time to introduce it. So activation breathing is where we spike that sympathetic response. We can go into a peak and then we can come down. Another style of breath work that we teach is called restorative breathing. And that's where we breathe deeply in and out of the nose, and we extend the exhale. And instead of kind of aggressively inhaling, for lack of a better word, we're going for slow and steady.
Okay. And so like like this?
Exactly. So breathing in slowly, and we could do, let's say you could start with a count of 6, and then you could exhale for 8. And just trying that simple pattern of slow, mindful breathing in for 6 and out for 8 seconds, it will start to relax your body. And then you can start to track where in your abdominal cavity, where you can feel in your torso that your breath is expanding and contracting. And so something that I recommend that people do when I'm guiding restorative breath work is to start with holding around the front here, holding the belly, like around your navel, and here kind of around your mid-chest, and try just breathing in. Notice the feeling, and out. If you've never done breath work before, or you've never actually observed your own breath, one of the things that I find pretty common is as soon as we bring attention to it, we're like, I don't know how to breathe anymore. And some people will try to push their belly out while they're exhaling, like not knowing what goes when. So if we just think about this for a moment, slowly in, we're filling up the balloon with air. Slowly out, we're letting it go. And just that simple practice, starting at the front, then you can go to the sides, holding the sides of the ribs.
Oh, yeah.
Feel that expansion and contraction.
Yeah.
And we want to feel that movement everywhere. And this is where also, if you notice that your breath is constricted or shallow in any way, you can get body work, especially diaphragmatic release. You can go to an osteopath, or if there's a body worker that is comfortable getting in there, you can get right up in the diaphragm and start working on the fascia to release a lot of the tension that's up in there, and it can open up the breath more. And then as a result, more relaxation.
That's so beautiful.
More safety.
Okay, so you keep referring to your work as we. And I know you've been in a very happy relationship for the last 15 years, which sounds wild for today's standards. And not only that, you are together, you actually are so loving, so supportive. And so it's easy to do that for the first year or 2 or 3 or 4. But I imagine it gets a little harder, especially in our environment of creatives and people that are in a lot of open relationships and, get to change their partners every now and then. So my question is how? How
Show me the way.
Start a relationship? Teach me, please.
Ooh, okay.
What's your story?
What is my story? Okay, so Lucas and I met when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
Would you believe? I had a fake ID. And we met at a nightclub and we just became friends.
In New Zealand, by the way.
Yeah, in New Zealand, we became friends. There was nothing romantic about it. We became like best buddies. And he and I were like, we just got each other on a different level. It was as if for the first time I found someone who was as weird as me and as curious about life. Like, who are we? Why are we here? Where did we come from? These were the kind of questions that we just wanted to ask all the time, and like would go into all sorts of trippy topics. So we developed a friendship, and then fast forward, we got together when I was 17. And I think this is important because we started with a friendship. And I felt safe with him before we went into romance. And I'm not saying that that's the only way to do things, but if you can recognize that you genuinely like them as a person and there's substance in your dynamic, you would want to hang out with them whether you were romantically involved or not. I do think you have a strong foundation for a happier relationship and a deeper relationship. So we were like party animals back then. We raged. We would go clubbing every week. We loved music, culture, art. He was a tattoo artist. I was working in the fashion industry.
Oh, so that's where all the tattoos are from.
Exactly. They are. He did them. And that was our world back then. But on the side, I remember one of the first things that we did, we would go out on a Saturday night, and then on Sundays we would walk to the public library and we would go and hire personal development books.
Wow.
And I remember we got Eckhart Tolle and James Redfield books, Marianne Williamson. Whatever we felt drawn to, we would read, and then we would encourage each other to read, and we'd share what we were learning.
Oh, like a little book club.
Exactly.
Is there one book that you can remember from that moment that was like, oh, that definitely like got us really inspired, that maybe there's something more out there for us?
Oh, yeah. Definitely Eckhart Tolle. We read
The Power of Now?
The Power of Now and A New Earth. We read those books, I think, about 20 times.
Wow.
That was like our Bible. And we were just hungry for truth. And we got into...
That's a tweetable.
Yeah. We got really into more esoteric spirituality and exploring. We would watch a lot. This was like at the beginning, I think, of YouTube.
Wow.
We're that OG. Yeah, we would watch a lot of YouTube videos, and fast forward, we were together for, I think, about 7 years when No, we're not married.
Okay. Oh, you're not married at all?
No.
Oh, I always think of you as...
Yeah, most people do think we're married. I can talk about that if you want to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, around the 7-year mark, I remember I had heard about breathwork. I had already shifted my career into coaching, and I was doing energy work, like energy medicine. And I heard about breathwork from a client of mine, and they said, you would love it. You should try it. So we went to Bali for a holiday, and I saw this poster for a breathwork workshop. And I was like, we need to go to that. I've heard of it. We need to try it. Lucas was like, I do not need to go to that workshop. I know how to breathe. I'm good.
Sounds like every single person.
Yeah. He was like, it sounds ridiculous, and I'm definitely not going. To the point where the workshop was actually really close to starting, and he was so stubbornly refusing to go that I yelled at him, and I was like, get on the bike, drive us, we're going. And we just slipped in the door of this workshop right as they were closing it. That workshop changed everything. Up until that point, I had been doing a lot of mental work with my personal growth. And I think
because it's reading and very heady, right? Like
exactly.
Reading, writing, like
thinking about how to be better, thinking about the past and what happened to you, thinking about who you want to be, all like a lot up in the head. And, you know, energy work wasn't so much heady, but where it was missing was I wanted proof. So I would be doing energy work and learning different methods and go, is this even working? Like, is this legit, or is this a complete fluffy BS waste of time? And I always think that we should be discerning and put everything to the test. Don't just blindly believe in something because it sounds lovely. So when we did breath work, I felt within 10, 15 minutes myself blast my consciousness open, basically. So I touched on this term non-ordinary state of consciousness before. Essentially, what I understand it as now is when we do breath work in this way, we start to experience a shift in our brainwave activity. And so in our daily lives, you know, we're in that beta brainwave, we're analytical, we're logical, we're like...
Could you explain all the brainwaves for people? Because I know there's some these machines, you know, that binaural beats that help you like change your brainwave. So if you can walk us through.
Yeah, of course. So that's beta brainwave when we're in our daily waking consciousness. And as we go into the breathing patterns, and there's different breathing patterns that can get you there, but in particular, this activation breath, which is circular, it's conscious connected. So it's fully in and out, like no pause between the inhale or the exhale. And you're just doing it continually. Eventually, what starts to happen is your brainwaves shift from beta into alpha brainwave, which is more of a relaxed, open, kind of meditative state. From there, you can go further into theta. And theta is more like a daydream where you can access visualization, sensation, and emotion at a much more heightened level. And it's easier to focus inward without having the distractions of the outer world take you away from the experience. So another way that we can access theta is through hypnotherapy.
I was going to say, because it's really you're in your subconscious and unconscious part of the mind. So,
and if we think about it like volume dials, when you close down your eyes and you start to access theta brainwaves, I feel that it's like turning down the volume on the outside world and turning up the volume on everything that's going on inside. So from there, it can go further into delta. Delta is more of a sleep-like state where there can be a lot of subconscious activity going on. So when someone's in delta, they can kind of look like they're asleep, but there's things happening. From there, it can go a step further into gamma. Gamma is a brainwave state that has been observed within monks who are extremely advanced in their meditation practices and reaching what we would call enlightenment.
Wow.
And it is like I think of it like a power hose of information versus a drip or a steady, gentle stream of a tap. When you're in gamma, it is all happening. It is like a mega blast of data and information.
Wow.
As human beings,
is it like the Kundalini awakening would be that?
Yeah. Right. Like source, God, energy, whatever we want to call it. There is a lot of information that is available to us within this reality, and our brains have the ability to filter and organize that so that we don't get overwhelmed. When you go into a gamma wave state, you're able to process at an exponentially higher speed.
Wow.
But it can also be extremely overwhelming. So the other practice that I've seen help people to access gamma waves in a safe and controlled setting is Dr. Joe Dispenza's work in his retreat.
Or, as Emily Fletcher says, the sex magic as well. Yes, my question to you was, can people experience an energetical orgasm during your work, especially when they're in that like...
Absolutely, yes. Yes, we see it all the time.
People are crying, having an orgasm. You're like, I love my job. This is great.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for someone in our workshop to describe having a 20 to 30 minute orgasm. And it's not...
Because it's energetic.
For everyone listening, they're not doing anything to themselves.
Or you're not doing anything to them.
It is, exactly. It's energy moving within the body-mind system. And one way that we could describe it is a brain orgasm. It's a mega blast of energy, sensation, and information. And that is what breathwork can do. So you give yourself a tool like that with the right supervision, guidance, and support, and you can access emotions that you've buried for a lifetime. You can access intuition that is profoundly helpful.
Beautiful. Especially that so many women have no idea what to do with their life.
Yeah.
They can't hear the voice of intuition. They're like, how do I know if it's intuition? It doesn't come from our heads, right? And, you know, I have a Higher Self Academy, which is like how to connect with your higher self. And it really is that, like, you know everything. You don't need Aggie, you don't need Helle, you don't need anybody. You know all the answers. You don't need any biohacking. Like, you know what to do with your life. And it's your intuition. And it will know better than anybody on the planet. And if someone tells you otherwise, that they're bullshitting you. So you know that. But it's how do you find that voice after, you know, the society disconnecting us from it our entire lives? You know, it comes from like, you're 3 years old and you're like, I'm not hungry. And mom's like, it doesn't matter if you're hungry, you should eat. And so you do all these things that are not fully aligned with how you feel. And then you're really confused about like the shoots are so loud that the what I need, I want, I know I'm capable of just becomes more and more quiet.
Yeah. So, okay, this is where I want to come full circle. I went pretty deep on the tangent there, but you asked me about relationships.
Yeah. We're definitely coming back because
the brain waves, the non-ordinary state. So just to like make sure that everyone knows we're still on track. There's a method to this.
So you're 7 years into the relationship. You're in Bali. You drag Scream and Lucas. Like, okay, we need to go on this.
Yeah, and we did it. And I blasted open into full feeling, and I could see so many of the ways that all of this mindset work that I was doing was actually like a band-aid. I was trying to develop a way of being that was like a layer on top of my authentic feeling and, you know, what I actually believed about myself. So I'm sure some of the listeners can relate to this, where you're like, I don't love myself. How do I act like I love myself? Or how do I convince myself that I do love myself?
Even though I still actually don't really love myself.
Exactly. And so I just had gotten really good at that. I was like a master of changing my state, changing my thoughts, convincing myself to focus on something else, go toward the good feelings, all of that. And when I was in this breathwork journey, I got really humbled because all that was there was the truth. And when your conscious mind kind of steps aside and you're in a non-ordinary state, the truth is there. It's obvious. It's unfiltered, and you have to be with it.
And knowing, it's not like that, oh, I think it's right. You know, it feels right.
Yeah.
And the truth feels right. It doesn't looks right.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah.
It's like becoming spiritually and emotionally naked. And
I love that comparison.
Yeah.
Especially with that.
And then
visual.
In that state, I was able to also see myself through the eyes of a love that I hadn't been able to access before. It's, you know, when I was saying about energy medicine, where you know there's something to this, but I can't quite grasp it in a tangible way. And so I'm not 100% sure it's working. When I was in that non-ordinary state of consciousness, I had a direct experience that I would call God or a higher intelligence. And that was such a pure love that all of the judgments that I had about myself, all of the ways that I was trying to be better, trying so freaking hard to be the best version of me, it was like all of it was just being washed and cleansed with love.
Oh,
one breath at a time.
I'm like really worried where you're going with this in terms of your relationship not working out. I was like,
so okay, fast forward. I'll say that Lucas had an equally profound experience in a different way. And we both got up and we were like, that was a game changer. We need to study this and share it with other people. And so that's exactly what we ended up doing. And we created our business together. And that was,
which is usually like a big flag for a lot of relationships never work together.
Yes, that was really big for us, especially when you've been together for years and you have a set dynamic, and then going into working together, it was a big adjustment. What I noticed for us is that the breath work was actually the thing that made the business survive.
Wow.
Because every time we hit a road bump, every time we would get resentful or frustrated with each other, we would turn to our breathwork practice and bring that pain and frustration there. And then it would give us a way to firstly meet the feelings within ourselves and get clear, like, what is it I'm actually feeling? Because I've been noticing I'm irritable and I'm snappy, but I don't really know why. So then we go into the breathwork and it's like, oh, it's because I feel like I'm doing more than you, or I feel like I want support with this and I haven't actually been asking for it, or we need to set these boundaries. And so we would do these journeys together, and then we would talk, you know, it's simple 101 relationship advice. Communication is everything. But if you don't even know how you feel, how can you effectively communicate?
Yeah, it's a big one, especially, right? Because it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, how do you feel? And so I'll be like, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know how I feel. I don't know why I'm upset. I don't know why I'm not happy. Like, and it's really interesting to hear that for you, that journey wasn't, you know, psychedelics, or it wasn't like going to India for 3 years or whatever. You know, usually that's the journey for people. For you, it was simply breathing, and that really got you there.
It really did. And another thing that I see a lot, I've seen it in my own relationship, is often there's one partner who's more emotional or sensitive than the other. Maybe there's one that processes their emotions more internally, and the other one is more expressive and
Expressive one.
okay, yeah, like the deep feeler, you want to talk things through.
Yeah.
That was me as well. And I'd be like, we need to talk. Like, we need to talk through everything. And he'd be like, I need space.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
It's me and Jacob 101.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't have the need to talk yet. And I'm like, I was like, no, painful.
And one thing that's difficult in that dynamic, I find, is when you're really sensitive to the feelings of another person and they're more internal, you can pick it up and you'll be like, something's wrong. We need to talk. Like, what's going on? You're not expressing this to me. And they're like, no, it's not. Like, there's nothing wrong. I'm good. You're like, I know that there's something.
I usually know what's wrong as well. I'm like, I actually feel how you feel.
Yeah.
So I can tell you.
Exactly. So sometimes they don't even know what they're feeling, but you know. And so what I've noticed with breathwork is it's really, really helpful for clarifying what those emotions are and making it more conscious. So for the first, honestly, 7 years of our relationship, right up until we found breathwork, Lucas cried, I think, once in front of me in 7 years. That's really,
very, really good. And that's very common for men to like not cry.
Yeah.
And I said that, so I was just like, you can cry, you know? And she was like, yeah, I just don't feel good. I'm like, no, but you should cry.
I know. You're like, please feel
because it's like all these layers of like that men shouldn't cry, and it's so deep. And I have so much empathy for men for like not feeling like they can burst into tears on a daily basis. They feel like they have to like hold it in, which is so unhealthy, right? And so through breathwork, he was able to actually process his emotions better, and
it changed him. It blows my mind, and yet I've now seen it happen to hundreds of men that I've worked with, women as well, you know, all genders. Sometimes we're emotionally constipated, blocked, numb. There's so much that's been repressed. And usually what I find is that there's emotions that haven't felt safe to feel, and it has created like a block in the flow. And when we go into it with breath work and we start to unblock it and let those emotions out, and also you can do work, like I was saying, the diaphragmatic release work, working on the fascia, getting into the body, it can unlock not only the physical body, but the emotional body. Now, Lucas cries pretty often. Like, he'll cry when he's going running with inspiration. He'll cry if he's feeling a bit like run down and tired, and not in a way that's chaotic or like, whoa, why would you want that? In a way where he's in touch with his emotions.
Also because the balance of feminine and masculine, super masculine, but he also has that feminine side.
But we all know how good it feels to have a good cry. Right?
Yeah.
I feel better.
Yeah, because it's a beautiful release. But would you say that was like the hardest moment of your relationship, or was there anything else that you found that was like a...
Yeah, okay. So that was one difficulty, was the mismatch in our emotional sensitivity in that way. Like, he's a very sensitive person, but he called me the emo princess for all those years. And he's like, oh, you're just so emotional all the time. And that kind of allowed us to meet in a deeper way. But I think another challenge that Lucas and I went through was more of a evolutionary challenge. And this is something I think is useful to speak about. And that is, you know, when you've been together for a long time, you are becoming a different version of yourself year after year. And
especially if you're into self-growth, I feel like I'm a completely different person. When I was like 3 years ago or 5 years ago, like, I feel like we should commit to each other every single day. Because it's like, yeah,
exactly. So I went to see a healer, kind of like a psychic, someone that I really trust. And she said to me, this is pretty left field, but I'm just getting this feeling that you have a fear of leaving Lucas. And I was laying on this massage table, and it was like being hit in the face. And I just started crying, sobbing, hyperventilating, because I was so confused. And yet she triggered terror in me when she said that. It was like shining a light on someone's greatest fear. Because Lucas and I had been together since I was so young, I realized that all I knew was being with him. That was my identity. We are a unit and we are here for each other forever. That session with that woman sparked a 2-year ego death for me.
Oh, wow.
It was difficult beyond belief. It felt like going through waves of being in like a psychedelic medicine trip for 2 years straight, where a part of me was being ripped away and I was fighting it with my life. So basically what happened is after that session, I started getting more and more messages coming through in my meditation practice telling me, yes, this is correct. You need to break up with Lucas. You need to step away from the relationship. And I didn't believe it. I was like, am I being influenced? Is there like some sort of psychic interference thing going on? I was in denial. Lucas knew about this the whole time. That was extremely upsetting for him, but he was doing his best to support me through it. And then I got to a stage after I did a psilocybin journey. And
Psilocybin's just
magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
And in that journey, I was by myself and I felt just really overwhelmed. I was like, I need to go home. And he was there and he didn't even know that I had done the psilocybin. And I walked in and I was like, I need help. This is not okay. And I remember I was just in this very intense state of lucid awareness. And he was like, okay, I've got you. And we went upstairs to our bedroom and he was like, just stay here. I'm going to get everything ready. And he got Palo Santo and he started clearing the energy in the room and he got blankets and cushions. And I remember I was like, why are you doing so much? Why are you being so intense? And he looked up at me and it was as if time froze. And he was like, I was just trying to make it nice for you. And it was like in the heart. I could see all of the ways that I was judging and making him wrong for so many things that were actually innocent gestures of love for him. And we just weren't meeting. And in that same experience, he was sober, by the way. And he said to me, I'm in the new relationship and you're still in the old one.
Oh, wow.
And I knew that it was profoundly true and I did not know how to shift it. I felt like I was stuck.
Because you were in a relationship, you basically saw him for who he was years ago and you couldn't really see him for who he is, like with fresh beginner's eyes and saying like, wow, I've done all this work, stop judging me or stop treating me as a man that was there a year or two ago. Oh, wow.
Yep. Still holding on to the resentments of like year one of our relationship, really outdated stuff that was still like subconsciously, waiting for a release, you know?
And so very true for women that we still like hold our men prisoners for things they have done years and years ago. And it's because it's really hard for us to process these emotions. And it's not like that we're mean, but they're still within us that haven't been healed or seen or held space for. And so it's still present for us and it's real, but it's also like our job and our responsibility to get to a place of like, how long can you just, be in that old relationship with somebody, right?
Exactly. So basically, again, fast forward, a few months went by, I think, from that. And I was trying to reconcile this all in my head and been like, there's got to be a way for me to heal this within the relationship. Like, can I just jump forward and be there and be good? And no, it was stubborn. So I surrendered. And, in ayahuasca or other sacred medicine ceremonies, one of the most important lessons that anyone who does it will tell you is you have to surrender.
The more you resist, the harder it gets.
Yeah. And I was in my own version of that. So I finally did surrender. And I remember I went into the bedroom one day and I just realized, I was like, today is the day. And this feels like the day of a funeral. And I told him, I am terrified and we need to break up.
Wow.
And we did the whole conscious uncoupling, and we sobbed in each other's arms, and we loved each other as much as we ever did. And we were like, this is the weirdest thing, because we love each other and yet we're choosing not to be together.
Yeah, it sounds like me and Jacob, actually.
Excruciating. I really feel for you, because I know the pain.
Yeah, and the mindfuck that you're in.
Yeah, and yet I also feel like if there's something authentically driving you in this unfolding, then you have to trust that it's going somewhere intelligent and it's beyond what your mind can fathom. So Lucas and I, we did that. We believed it wholeheartedly. We let the old relationship die. We made an agreement that we would keep the business and still work together. And like,
like Jacob's here.
Jacob's here. And yeah, just like you two, we were like, we are still going to collaborate. We're still going to be best friends. We're going to see where it goes and figure it out.
How long did it last?
Okay, so this is wild. The week that we broke up, we left LA to go on tour. And I think it was about 10 days into our tour, COVID lockdown hit. Our event tour got shut down, and we ended up in an Airbnb together with no tour. And I remember this like one day, and I walked and we were cuddling and like would be kissing and doing couple things. And then we'd be like, wait, stop. Like, don't do that. You can't do that. And then it would be like,
I feel
but
so
I want
for you.
I don't know what this is. Like, I want to, but I shouldn't. What is going on? And then I just got to this place where I was like, no, I really want to. And he was like, yeah, I want to. And then
Like a COVID couple.
yeah, it was just like we merged back together and we were in the new relationship.
So that was after 12 years of being together that you took a little bit of a break. That was actually ended up being only 10 days.
Yeah.
After this big breakup and this big decision.
Yeah. And there was no other people. I didn't go and like date anyone or anything like that. We were together the whole time, like in the same vicinity.
But did you believe that there was like you needed this like ceremony, this like ritual about like closing that old relationship
Yes.
that you were in, and so you actually broke up with that old relationship, and then you just
did it. We ended that relationship. And the other thing that happened was I saw myself as someone who could end the relationship and be okay.
Oh,
Like, oh, you actually can have a life as your own woman. You're good. What do you want? What do you choose? And it was, I think that was a part of the magic, going, oh, we don't have to be together. But as this woman that I am today, I choose you.
yeah, because I don't need you. I choose you. And it's super powerful. And it's also important for yourself to prove to yourself that you can walk away and be totally fine.
Yeah.
I think I needed to see that from myself. I think a big part of like limiting belief was that like, oh, I think I need Jacob for X, Y, and Z. And now the last few weeks have showed me that I don't. But also for him to like see that you are capable of picking up your things and leave if something doesn't serve you. So it's like setting the right standard in a relationship that like, I am not taking you for granted. I'm not taking myself for granted. I'm here to like do the best I can to, to bring my foot forward.
Oh, so true. And, in a long-term relationship, you can get quite complacent. And I noticed for us, there would be certain things that we'd do that were like, oh, I can do that because we've been together for so long. And
like, you get away with.
You won't mind. Yeah, I can get away with it. Even in that brief breakup, it was like a reset where suddenly I was like a bit shy. I'm like, okay, I should make an effort and I should think twice before I assume that he's okay with something.
Because nothing is no longer taken for granted. Because the person was,
So that's what happened with us. And that's the summarized version. But wow, it was painful. It was terrifying. It was healing. And I can't say that it's how it's going to unfold for everybody because everyone has a unique journey. But I think that relationships are hard. Don't let anyone tell you or convince you that it's all rainbows and butterflies. We've been together for 15 years now, and it's challenging, and I learn new things about him all the time, and we're like constantly adjusting the standards and the expectations and being like, I'm different to you, so don't expect me to be like you, please.
Yes. And it's different because you're a woman, you're different because you're a different person. So many things that we go through life very differently just because the way we look and our biology, even having the same experiences, we just take, we see the world as we are, not as it is.
Yeah.
Final question. So what's the number one bio? I know what you're going to say, but maybe try to say something not as breathing.
A little unexpected.
But
unexpected.
Yes, but I always like to say, what is the one biohack that brings you to your higher self? And if that was not breathing every day, is there anything every day that you do? Because I watch your stories, and you honestly, I admire you so much for like the fucking mindset. You're so sharp focused of like, there's more out there, and I'm reaching my highest potential every single day. And the way I show up every single day matters. So I'm journaling. I have my pen mat. I have my sauna. Like, you're just really on it, but you coming from such a beautiful place of like, this, I'm here to reach my highest potential, and I need to show up every single day.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. Can I give 2?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Bonus. Okay. 1 is a mindset hack, and that is living with a beginner's mind and always being hungry for new knowledge. I think if you can live with such an open mind and assume that you know puck all, then you're constantly curious and receptive to becoming more and more wise, successful, healthy, all of the things.
And just like, don't be embarrassed to ask questions.
Exactly. I love that. Like, in the pursuit of mastery, one of the best things that you can do is just be hungry for more knowledge. I think as soon as you get to a place where you think that you've arrived, you're probably on the downward, the decline. So stay hungry and open, live your life like you don't know anything. And the other is to allow yourself to trust the divine timing. I think so many people
are in it to have it's 11:11. Oh, the timing, it's perfect.
Exactly. And when we're trying to heal, I know for me with physical healing stuff, it would be like, I need to heal now. I need the pill, the potion, the cleanse, the book, the thing now, and I want it to be over. And the same with career success, relationship, whatever. I want the one, I want the job, I want the money, like this end result mentality. And I know it's cliche, but life really is a journey. And if you were, let's just try it on for a moment. If you were like orchestrating, if you were the puppet master of reality, wouldn't you want life to play out like the most beautiful movie, full of unexpected twists and turns, where the character gets what they want, but not in the way they expect. And it's like hard, and they've got to fight for it, and they've got to really dig deep within themselves.
Yeah.
I see life like that. And I think when we come up against hardships and friction, it's so easy to go into a victim mentality and be like, why is it so hard? Well, what about like, why not? Like, dig deep in your life and trust that it's all working out for you.
I love that. I like the main character energy, and just like everything is actually a movie. Where can people find you, Helle?
Instagram is a good place. You can find me Helle_Weston or at Awaken Breathwork. And
you guys have your own app?
Our app, Awaken Breathwork, in the App Store.
And also, if you want to learn more about breathwork, you facilitate breathwork classes for beginners, but also for those who want to become breathwork facilitators.
Exactly. And in the
Spark Park, the talent. Yes. So if you want,
I am in there with Lucas.
Oh, you guys made the course so much better. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today. I love you, and
I love you.
Can't wait to speak to you soon again. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, fam.